Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of season three of the Rugby NorCal podcast. I'm your host, Nate Delaney, and I'm here with Rugby Development Summit's premier presenter, premier coach, Coach Darryl Suasua. Darryl, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very good, Nate. I'm actually talking here from the Philippines at the moment, where it's stinking hot. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Well, I'm hoping that when you come to the Bay Area, San Francisco, it's a little more pleasant for you. But any day on a rugby field and any day coaching rugby or being around rugby is a good day.
Yeah, it certainly is. I'd rather be doing that than anything else. So it's no bad day in rugby, I reckon.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, before we even get into it, Daryl, I mean the resume that you've had, the career that you've had and built up, and the amount of players that you've helped, and the amount of countries that you've helped. I'm just so grateful that you are coming to the Rugby Development Summit this year. I'm so excited to have someone of your caliber there. It really, I think, helps our rugby community really elevate. And so I'm just so appreciative that you said that you would want to come and that you'd want to give to our development, to our coaches in Northern California, obviously from the youth and high school side, which is my side, and NCRFU, which is the adult side, and any of the college coaches that are also going to be there as well. I mean, your resume is amazing. Rugby World Cup with the Black Ferns, both 15s and sevens. I mean, you're coaching Manu Samoa. You've coached at the community levels. You've coached at so many different levels that I think you're going to be able to bring such a holistic approach and a holistic mindset to this event that it's really going to be able to touch kind of anybody that shows up.
Oh yeah, look, I'm really looking forward to it. As you say, I've been really lucky in rugby, and probably the last 30 years or so has have been involved fully in full time. It's been a full time job with coaching there's been development work. I was coach development manager for New Zealand Rugby. It's a funny story getting into that role. I finished the World Cup in 2002 with the Black Ferns and decided, look, I've had enough. I was still relatively young then. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, shucks, I need to get a real job. So the thing, full time professional coaching, it's to me, it was scary because I had a young family. My wife got a support, and I know all you see with the coaches, they're either got a job and you're just waiting until, a few bad results and you're gone.
Yeah.
So for me, that wasn't a stable pathway. So I looked to get back into teaching, which is what I trained to do.
Mm.
And the CEO of New Zealand Rugby at the time, Steve Chew, gave me a call and asked me if I'd be interested in coaching a few things. And I said, "Nah, look, mate, I'm done." So they offered me a what they called a resource coaches contract, which meant I was on a contract that I was being paid to work for New Zealand Rugby Union, but I was just loaned out to different teams.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
also had to be available to help out all the New Zealand teams, like the New Zealand age grade teams at their camps and stuff like that. So, with that sort of contract was awesome. I got sent up to do some work at Perpignan in France. Helped out with China Sevens in the early days to set them up when they first announced they were going to the Olympics. What else? Worked a lot of stuff around all the Pacific Islands. And when I got the role with Manu Samoa, they were sort of was post 2011
Okay.
after the World Cup, and they'd appointed a coach, and obviously the coaches they had at the World Cup previously had moved on. And the head coach gave me a call and says, "Oh, would you come and help us? We're a bit, that the coach that we wanted is actually tied up in Super Rugby." And I said, "Yep, I can do that." So New Zealand Rugby was happy to loan me there for a few years, which was good. But the beauty of it was, and the thing I liked the most is there's no pressure on results for me because I always had the job. So I
Hmm.
had a New Zealand Rugby, and so yeah. So as I say, it's been a privilege and an honour to do all those things. But thankful to New Zealand Rugby for giving me that opportunity.
Certainly, certainly. And what a great chance and what a great opportunity to kind of see so many different aspects of coaching, right? Because everyone is so different, right? It doesn't, not just from an age grade standpoint, whether you're coaching kids or adults, but also the different cultures that you go see and how do you deliver information and what is effective when you're trying to deliver certain things so that players can perform and being able to have such a wide breadth of experiences, I think really kind of helps you hone in what works and what doesn't, from what I would think.
Yeah. Like, I mean, the different countries I've been to is, every country's different.
Hmm.
I did a summit a while back, and the first thing I want to know when you're going somewhere, I just need to know about the coaches, what level they're coaching at, and if they say they're working at an elite level, and the next thing you've got to find out, well, what does elite look like in that country?
Yeah.
Because the variety or the variation between the countries is huge. Working in like we did something at Queen's University earlier this year. They had a great
Yeah.
program up at university. Then over to Amsterdam, where again you had a lot of coaches that had signed up for the summit. It was awesome, but some of them were coaching, youth rugby. So to get an idea of what youth rugby looks like there was important. And then had a look at, also at Amsterdam, you had some national coaches that were coaching, at the national coach of Belgium, and there were coaches from Germany and that sort of stuff, and national programs. So to actually be able to adjust what your delivery is for all those groups, and I think I'm lucky that comes from experience and just, I mean, to be fair, sort of experience all ranges. You look
Yeah.
at stuff with All Blacks. One of the areas that I worked in, it was in Toulouse in France with Guinoves, and that was probably the most that really changed my coaching philosophy. What they were doing, learned so much being up there. They do things different than we do in New Zealand, but it was a real eye opener. So that was the real top level, and also then you have a look at what they're doing with the All Black program. That's right up there. And then you go right back to, say, if I'm here in the Philippines, for example, working with the club rugby, they would the top club teams would struggle to beat like our school teams in New Zealand. So it's putting everything on a scale. So when you go into the
Wow.
different places, we need to adapt and understand that everybody's starting from a different point.
Certainly, certainly, and I mean, a phenomenal approach just from a coaching standpoint, really to be able to understand what you're working with and then figure out the highest and farthest those individuals can go. I'm completely biased when I say this, but Northern California is the best place to play rugby in the United States. I'm just going to make that known right now. But obviously, I'm a NorCal guy, so I'm going to be really biased about that. But I'm super excited. What was that one more time? Sorry.
I've got two boys. I've got two boys, actually three boys here in the Philippines that are playing in that area, and they're telling me the same thing. So,
Beautiful. Beautiful. We love that. That's what we like to hear. That's what we like to hear. So I'm glad we're known for it. And hopefully, well, to be honest with you, Darryl, having coaches like you come to the United States and talk about what we can do, how you can be better, how you can improve as a coach, that's what really takes our game as a whole to the next level. And it's really not just, what you pick up or what a single coach picks up, right? It's the perpetuation of everything that you learn, right? And then, if I have one takeaway from you from this event, that takeaway is going to get expressed to players that I coach. And then if those kids become coaches, then all this good, just perpetuates and starts to, build on top of each other. And then out of nowhere, your area is getting better. Right. And that's kind of where I
yeah,
think what I'm the most excited about when it comes to these events like the Rugby Development Summit. And then obviously our great community of rugby in Northern California. We are good size in comparison to the United States, and like rugby in each state, we are pretty fair size. But when you go outside of it, we're still pretty small when it comes to international rugby, and so our community is what is our strength, and being able to learn from each other is too. So I'm excited about you
yeah.
coming. I do have a question. You've coached in so many places at so many different levels. I'm curious if there is something at each level. Is there something that you do, or is there something, an approach or a framework? Because obviously you've done a lot of the World Rugby frameworks and World Rugby coaching like documents, right? And so, what is similar? What can like you do at every single level? Is there anything that you can do
Yeah.
at each level? You know?
Yeah. For me, I think the biggest thing, any team, any organization, any company is the environment you create. So
Mm,
we're talking about, a culture. In my belief is you can't walk into a place and say the culture is going to be this. What we do is you can walk in and you can create an environment where culture evolves. And I've always said that as a coach, you're a manipulative bugger. You can sort of trim off the environment or do certain things in the environment, and that will just nurture a culture. And hopefully in the summit, the people that come, they'll see that in action. So the first thing is trying to get to know the participants, what's going to help them learn, and probably creating an environment that we're going to be learning in. So I know that with Rusty Earnshaw, he's very good at creating, all sorts of good fun games and stuff like that. But they're all about learning, getting to know each other, trying to make sure that people are not afraid to speak up and enjoy what they're doing. So wherever we go, it's about making sure we understand the people we're working with, and then creating an environment that's best going to help them learn. With Manu Samoa, for example, it was when you've got 32 players coming into a campaign from 32 different teams around the world. The first thing is the reconnecting back to their roots in Samoa. So a lot of them have left the islands to make money for their families. And, the first thing we'll do is have a Polynesian night, we'll get some food in and some dance and music and that sort of thing. So they start to feel at home straight away. So they sort of click back into their Samoan mind. Black Ferns was a similar. We had the way we did things in that team, which could have been totally different to Samoa. With the coached at provincial level with the counties, in particular some of the sevens teams. Every team's different, but to build an environment that fosters the sort of culture you want, that's probably the one thing I'd say you'd take to any team you go. Even kids, I coach one of my best coaching or most memorable coaching jobs is I coached a group of kids that were about 11, 12 years old from South Auckland, which is a tough area in New Zealand. And a lot of them didn't play rugby in teams, but we put together a little representative team, represented South Auckland. And these were back in the days with the WWF, when the Ultimate Warrior was big in that. So we named ourselves the South Auckland Ultimate Warriors, and they all wore paint on their faces when they played, and all this sort of stuff. As I say, it was a pretty lower socio-economic group. So went around to all the schools, to the sewing departments, took material around. They made their tracksuits for them, and we got screen printing and did them all up. And so the team went on to do really, really well. And a lot of the kids went on, kicked on to play good footy. But I guess the purpose of that story is it doesn't matter what age, you create an environment that people love being part of, they will learn and they will grow.
That's so fascinating. It really does sound like, and it sounds like you're really going above and beyond as a coach to be able to connect and to be able to make those players feel seen. Is that a good way of putting it? It's one of those things where you have to really find those players with who they are as individuals in order to build the team culture that you're trying to create.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think of it, you've got a team of, say, 20, 23, 25 players. Everybody needs to feel some sort of power, that they've got control over something. And if you set up an environment, I'll just keep using examples if that's okay. But in a club that I coached back in New Zealand, a club called Bombay, a player we had is we desperately needed to keep him motivated. We had two very good locks. He was the third lock that probably had a lot of time off the bench, but his job simply was writing a haka for the team. So he's was a teacher by trade. He taught Māori, which is the indigenous people of New Zealand. So he taught Māori language. So I asked him to write the haka, but suddenly he grew 10 feet tall because he was in charge of that. After trainings, we'd say, boys, that's us, finish off. And then he goes, boys, let's haka before we go. So he'd get all the boys lined up across the halfway. They'd finish training with the haka. But his worth, his power in that team just grew immensely. So he was fully invested. And so probably one of the things I try to do with any team, and we'll try and do the same with the group, we've got to find out how we can give people power, how we can
Hmm.
recognise their special talents. So even though the haka may not have had anything to do with the rugby on field, he had power within a group of people. And when you've got like 25 people that all feel that they have a power in something, they can lead in something, things happen. So I mean, my view is there's no such thing as leadership without fellowship. So, if this guy, for example, was leading the haka, everybody else is prepared to follow. They believe in him. But when they're looking after their department, like the guy that might be looking after lineouts or the captain, he's right in behind them because they're behind him for his part. So it's trying to put things together like that and that keep that environment going.
Mm. I mean, this kind of stuff just really gets me juiced up about the game. It
Mm.
really is why. I mean, it's why this game is so special. I also believe why the community is so strong because of those kind of beliefs, right? Being able
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
find power within yourself. I love how you explained it. Being able to find power within yourself, being able to give to the team, everyone being able to respect that, and then obviously being able to come together as a group to achieve, right? And like take
yeah.
that take that anywhere. You don't even have to, I mean, that's rugby, whatever, business, what friendships,
Mm.
relationship. That's beautiful. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
why this game is so special. Shoot, we've been talking for a little bit of time now. I don't think we've talked about X's and O's or how to make a pass yet, So it's like it's beautiful that that's kind of that mindset. I love really talking about it. I couldn't thank you enough for sharing that. It's phenomenal. I'm curious if there's any like in regards to culture, do you have any non-negotiables when you walk in? Do you have anything already like preset or is it pretty fluid for you all the time? Like wherever you go? It seems like
Um,
you've been to a lot of places. So
yeah, look, I'll tell you, one of the biggest things I learned a long time ago, and I went to, I don't know if you know Sir Brian Lahore. Have you
mm,
heard that name before? Sir Brian Lahore he was an All Black coach, an All Black captain, and he actually was the first coach of the All Blacks that won the World Cup in 1987. And when I got the role to coach the Black Ferns, I was taking him to the first World Cup in 1998, and I caught up with him and I said to him, Sir Brian, got any tips for me? And I'm going to World Cup, and obviously what you did was great. Have you got any tips for me? And he says to me, "Look, son," he says, "all you got to remember, you're not Jesus Christ. You don't have to save the bad ones." And I said, "Well," and he says, "Let me explain." He says, "It's like if you don't like someone, don't pick them." So it's
mm,
about picking good people that you actually like, that you can work with. And he explained it to me like this. He said, "It's like when you get a fax," and I don't know if people still know what faxes are, but he
yeah,
says, "It's like when you get a fax. It comes through, you have a look at the fax machine. If it's someone you like, you respond straight away. If it's someone you don't like, it sits on the pile and you're going to get around to it." And he
yeah,
said, "That's like your play. You don't like them, you're not servicing them right." So I guess with that it means if there's a certain type of player, people, good people first. There's people that you get on well with, that you like, that you can work with. They're the ones you pick, and so yeah, that would probably be the non-negotiable. For me, is if I'm selecting a team, I need to know them. I need to know they're good people, and you sit down and chat to them about their families, about where they're from, what they've done, and all. And you get to know you get to know people, and then that just manifests itself on the field. They ready to put in the extra work and that sort of stuff. But yeah, that would be my real non-negotiable in selecting teams. Yeah, get to know them first and make sure you're picking good people.
I am so glad you said that. Really, we have a lot of kids that have aspirations in Rugby NorCal that they want, that want to play for a long time, right? And I think it's so important for those kids to hear that from someone of your caliber, right? I
Yeah,
mean, coaches on the field, we say it all the time, right? Like, and rugby also has a way of revealing who you are when you're on the field as well. I'm a firm believer in that. Certainly, I've experienced that as a player too. But being able to hear that from somebody, I think it's really important that our parents and players hear that from someone like you. I also think it's very important for our coaches to hear that as well, because it is our responsibility to do our best to try and get those kids,
yeah,
into a
yeah,
positive light and into a positive situation so that they can, provide and give to the game and give to their teammates. So it's just such an
yeah.
important note there, certainly. So,
Yeah, I think it's important, when you're working with people, they've got to understand, And if they respect you and you respect them, sometimes, when people feel that you're holding them back, you're not naming them, or you're not naming them for the starting 15. And if they trust you, they believe you're making the right call. But, I've had players before that you haven't named them, and they get angry in that, and they play up and that sort of stuff. And that's the wrong person. I tell a story about the little boy that goes out with his father, and they're flying a kite, and the father's got the string and is holding the kite up there, and the little boy says to Dad, make the kite go higher. So lets out a bit more string. Dad, make it go higher. Lets out a bit more string. And he's at the end of the string, and the little boy says, Dad, let the kite go higher. And the dad goes, no, I can't. If I let go, the kite will fall down. And, the moral of the story being that sometimes the thing you think is holding you back is the only thing holding you up. And, I often tell that story at the start, of campaigns as a thought of the day. So if players think that I'm holding them back, it's simply I've made a decision you're probably not ready yet. And, there's been situations where, one thing it used to drive me nuts is in New Zealand, you see a former All Black at the age of 20. They played one test, they got put into it, and all of a sudden they're disregarded, that, they didn't quite make it. In my opinion, it's only my opinion, they should never have been put in there. They weren't ready for it. And they're branded with it. So, the idea of, they trust you. So you're looking after their best interest by not pushing them to situations they can't handle. It's like, don't give people more responsibility than they can handle responsibly. And I guess that's the scenario I'm trying to say. If I put someone in too early, mate, that might be the end of them. So, their longevity in the game is also in my hands. If I'm making those decisions, so I've got to make them carefully.
Just a really great insight into the intricacies of selection and a player, and you're right. It's the responsibility of the coach. It's the responsibility of the leadership in order for us to put players into proper positions. I think giving them responsibility and for what they can be responsible for.
Yeah.
Man, that's really good. That's really good, Darryl. I mean, that's awesome. I think you and I can talk rugby culture and coaching and coaching philosophy for hours. I do want to get into a little bit on Saturday and Sunday, right? And so we've interviewed Rusty, and we've interviewed Andrew Cook. Want a little bit about what Saturday and Sunday are going to look like. Obviously, Saturday is going to be a little bit more like games based and how to evaluate skills. Sunday, building attack and defense structure. Anything like if you had a takeaway or anything about, either of those two, like 30,000-foot views, maybe a little preview on Saturday and Sunday and what you are going to be talking about.
Yeah, look, to be fair, I haven't seen the final program yet. I've seen, the content pieces that I'm supposed to be looking at. For me, the first thing I always like to do is frame it up so everybody's on the same page. So we're actually looking at exactly the same game. So I'll always start off by looking at what is rugby, what is defence, what is attack. So we've got some common language there. Then I'll look at sort of, in my part, I look at assessing, just showing coaches way that you can assess your team. So that you can coming up with some sort of game plan for them, and then on day two, I get the last block where we try and incorporate what we've done over the last 2 days. So with the other guys are doing a lot of game-based training, they might be doing some skill building and that. And my job at the end of the summit will be to try and put all those things back into some team run, and hopefully what the coaches will see is that the difference between day one when we first got them, where they were possibly a little bit lost, and how we may have tidied it up by day two. So what it does is it takes the coaches through a little bit of a template on how they can build up a structure. If there's teams that need to be ultra structured, so we like to make sure that coaches understand that we've got to profile our teams first. So we've got to decide whether we're going to go fully structured or a little bit more laissez-faire, where they play what they see, and it's like a continuum. So by having a look at what we got, where are we going to put what level are we going to deliver at? So it is a little bit of assessment. The other thing I do on day 2, I get a block where we talk about how to create an environment for a team. So culture and practice. So what I've heard a lot of times, and different places I've been to where people have asked, the culture, they tell me the culture's wrong. Oh, we've got to get our culture right. Or we've got the greatest culture in the world and all this sort of stuff. And say, when you ask people to describe what is the culture, they're describing actions. So I want to try and help coaches realize that what we're looking at is behaviors and values rather than, and attitudes rather than actions, and how we can manipulate environments to get to the places we want to be. So in a nutshell, that's my role, and it ties in with the other guys and what they're doing.
Interesting. And these structures and that evaluation, moving it into evaluating skills, improving on skills, and then moving that into a Sunday structure. We could take that, doesn't matter what kind of team you're coaching, right? It could be a U10 team,
No.
it could be a elite, it could be the California Grizzlies, it could be, any team, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, the important thing is the initial block. I always think the most important part is the initial block where we get the same language. Okay. So whether we're coaching youth, whether we're coaching premiers, there's still the same principles that we're trying to achieve at different levels. We just have different emphasis on the, whatever principle we're trying to get to. As younger kids, we might put more emphasis on say, the principle of just support play, for example, whereas up the elite, they might have to put more emphasis on the initial principle because it's more competitive at the set piece. Okay, so as long as we're talking the same language, then people can adapt it up and down as they go. I think the other thing about the summits that it's great. So Phil Connolly, who runs them, he's been really good like this. Is he allows us to assess what we've got in front of us first. And like the plan that we've gone in, and this will be my 3rd summit, the plan we've gone in with, we haven't stuck to it at all. It's pretty loose, but what we've done is we've pivoted and made sure we cover off what the participants would like to learn. So probably the first thing we do is we get everybody to write up on a post-it and stick it on the wall exactly what they're hoping to get out of the summit. And our goal is to make sure we can take all those post-its off the wall by the time we finish. So, we may insert a little block because a lot of people have asked a certain thing. So we're happy to do that and make sure we tailor it to whatever the requirements are of that group.
That's great. And you can take that approach. With your teams as well. I just get excited about talking to this stuff, to be honest with you, because I think there's a lot of coaching out there, and I certainly used to be or am, and I still have these tendencies. But it's like I know I want to run a 1-3-3-1, or I know I want to run this, or I know I want to run that, and really, it's hard to go into a season like this, or it's hard to go into a season and think that you're going to do one thing without knowing where your players are at, and I think or who your players are, and in youth rugby specifically, there's so many different factors in regards to players coming in and players leaving, right? There's kids growing year every year, right? Maybe one year a player is this position, but now he's grown a lot in a year, and so now this player's this position. Like, you really don't know what you're going to get until you start getting out on the field. Maybe your recruiting does really well and you have 6 new athletes that have just come in, so that opens things up for you. So I think a framework to allow for, and getting an understanding of what you have, how to build skills around what you have, and then working those skills into an attack structure. I could take that every year and I'm going to be good because I know in the end, I'm going to be doing what's best for the kids that are on the field.
Yeah.
Right?
I always believe the profiling, getting a decent profile and having a system or a structure where you do a pretty thorough profile is pretty important. Probably the most important thing you do. So when you start structuring it's not just the game shapes or the systems you're going to use on the field, but it's also about how you deliver your messages. So as a coach, the way I deliver in Japan, for example, would be totally different from the way I deliver in France. Different mindset, different educational background. The Japanese was up there on and off for 15 years. It's a lot more instructive. So I guess you want to get them to a stage where they're making more decisions, but you have to understand where they're starting from. So they're starting from where you need to be more directive. Believe it or not, the Pacific Islands, their education system is all very autocratic. So if you're starting off with Islanders, you need to be very autocratic, and they want to know just tell me what they need to do. The idea is if you're working with those players from those areas, you want them to make decisions on the field. So you've got to shift that mindset. But again, by profiling, you end up knowing where you need to start, what your start point is, and then knowing what your end point is going to be when you get them to hissing on the field. But yeah, knowing your start point is very important. So hopefully we can share some ideas on how to get to that.
Do you see any tendencies with any of the American players that you coach in regards to effectiveness of delivery of coaching?
Yeah, what I noticed with the American players here, and a lot of them are at a very that are coming in with the Philippines, that are very high, playing at a high level there. But what I've learned is they're used to being told what to do, like it's almost coach led. And doing stuff here. Players have approached me that have played at high national levels and says, "Oh, coach, we need to be running this angle, we need to be doing this, and we should tell everybody to do this." And see, personally, that's not my. If I was coaching New Zealand, I wouldn't get away with telling players you need to do it this way. Because we're trying to coach decision making. So to go back to that, to go back to being very autocratic and telling them exactly where they need to go and what their line is, we're squashing their flair. We're taking away decision making from them. So when I learned that, because last year I had a couple of very good players from me, and they were great players, and they were the ones that came to see me. It's not enough detail around this. So for them, I had to put that detail in so that they were comfortable. But by the end of the tour, by the time we ended, they were playing. They were playing with flair. They were, making decisions. They were incredible. Both of them did a great job for us. But it was interesting when I did the reviews with them. Is just talking about things like that. It's about us making decisions. There's not one way to do it. But yeah, it is different with the different areas, and that's what we've got to realise. But yeah, your question here about the Americans, I think looking at American rugby in the past, and I've been there a few times with jobs. A lot of them, coach, what do I do here? Coach, what do I do there? Sort of thing. They're asking the coach for the answers, and my way of thinking is, well, what do you think? What do you see? What's the pictures you see? So how do we, so yeah, it's interesting.
Interesting. I wonder if kids in the United States are playing, football, basketball, baseball, growing up mostly, right?
Yes.
And those are our four mains. And especially when you get, contact football players, it's a lot of this is what you do. Like, this is the play. This is what you do. Or if you're on defenses, if this is what they do, this is what you do. Right. And so it's not like a lot of free flowing motion. And so I can certainly see how that could be a something that carries with American players without a doubt. Great insight.
Yeah. I think it is from the background of football and the other sports here. So and even people calling me coach is foreign to me. Coach. So my name's Darryl in New Zealand, where I coach. Just call me. My name's Darryl. It's not coach. And I said it's funny because I've said it's some boys here in the Philippines and. New boys that have come and going, oh, coach. And I said, no, boys, don't call me coach. When you keep calling me coach, I think it's because you don't know my name. And they go, oh. So anyway, this boy comes up to me yesterday. He goes, Darren. And he says, hey, boys, I'm not using coach. Darren, mate, that's not even my name. I was right. So, yeah, I think with that, the American stuff, I worked many years ago, like with Leonard Peters, who was he played football. I can't remember which NFL team he was with. He's a Hawaiian boy, and I was in Hawaii and worked with him. Had a good chat to him about everything, And I think he played, he got involved in the US Sevens program. This would have been about 10, 12 years ago. But he was, he'd played football professionally and an NFL team. And just talking to him about, everything's called for them. They're told, they have to learn all their plays, these massive playbooks and stuff like that. So if they've grown up like that, it's no wonder they subscribe to that sort of coaching. When I watched this, used to watch it. I mean, my favourite team on the circuit was the state USA team. When they had Perry Baker and
Yeah.
Barrett and
Yeah.
but that was Carlin. That was my favourite team. Them and Fiji. And what I liked about it is just, someone like Perry Baker, he just makes something out of nothing, what he saw and stuff like that. But the other thing, and not trying to be super critical or anything, but I felt that a lot of times they weren't being used because they were sticking to patterns on the inside of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked quite structured at times. And then all of a sudden they'd get the ball in their hands, they do something incredible, and you go, wow, just blow you away. And I'm just saying, why don't they get them? I remember watching some games and Cullen Isles would hardly touch the ball at all. They're running different little moves in the middle of the field. I'm thinking, man, if that guy gets the ball, he's going to score again.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
sometimes you've got to, it's a hard one. It's just your coaching style, and they change across, from country to country. How people have been coached, and that's why a summit like this is sharing. So, particularly what Rusty does. Rusty's going to do some. I hope the coaches really like what he does, because his is all about decision making, and effectively the difference between the good players and the not so good players is the players that can recognise their changing roles in dynamic play. So, as an example, they might be going to ruck, they might need to be a cleaner. But all of a sudden there's a ball, they could probably play that ball and dart around the edge. So their role has changed from cleaner to distributor or ball player. But if they're prescriptively coached, all they know is ball's down there, it's being placed, I have to bridge over that. So yes, the stuff that Rusty does really tries to get people just thinking about what they're doing on the run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was great last year, and I'm super excited. He did a couple of his games last year too. Um, 50-22 was one of them, and then the other one was Rondo, which I used a ton on the field last year. And then I think he's gonna do Park the Bus this year, which I'm super juiced about because I tried to figure that out online and I couldn't figure it out. So I'm excited to be able to see it, and I'm just excited about having so many good, well-rounded coaches there to be able to deliver information to coaches. It's going to be information overload for sure, but I think you're going to be able to pick up everything, at least one thing from all these coaches that's going to help you get better. And then hopefully, and I know a lot of the coaches in NorCal did this last year. They stayed in contact, they kept communicating, they kept trying to learn. And
Yeah.
again, overall, that's what's going to get better. It's not only just the weekend; it's being able to build the relationships and continue with the growth.
Oh yeah, like I think that's the most important thing. When you get to courses or summits and things like this, is you're building up a network. And if you, I mean, I'm in contact with a lot of people all the time. People just throw ideas past me and say, "Oh, look, I've got this happening at my club. What would you do?" That sort of thing. Or I want to coach. Like at the moment, just someone's asking, "How do I coach a late lift and a line out? What are some of the things you might do for that?" And to be honest, I tried looking it up on the rugby site and
Yeah.
looking it up on YouTube to find how people do it. But I'll probably just ask someone else, and someone will be able to come back and say, "Look, there, try this." And I think that's the beauty of, you get 60 odd people on a course. There's 60 new resources that you've got,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
and that's why hopefully we can encourage them to the people on the course sit with different people at lunch times or breaks, or just start to mix. Junior coaches talk with some of the senior coaches, so you get a real understanding of the pathway. So your role is, if you've got youth players, your role is to prepare them for the next stage. So find out what those guys are doing up there, and it helps you. The idea of starting with the end in sight and working backwards will help with developing the players. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. Every great coach that I've talked to all have a gigantic network of coaches that they talk to. Every single one of them. that are like high quality coaches that they all have people that they're constantly talking to and trying to figure out. And it's like a sub community within our community. It's
Yeah, yeah,
of people trying to just improve. And so I'm just juiced that you can be a part of this, right? That you can be a part of our community for a weekend and then hopefully continue to be a part of our community after that as well with
yeah.
all those that want to stay connected. So just super excited about that. Before we wrap up here, I don't want to give up too much secret sauce, and we've been talking for a good amount of time here. Is there anything that we should be thinking about? Anything that you want the coaches or anyone that registers to be thinking out or prepared for as they come into the Friday, Saturday, Sunday of October 10th to October 12th?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the main thing going to any of these courses, anything you go to, the thing I really like about what the rugby side have done here is it's totally non-prescriptive. So if you're doing the World Rugby level twos, level threes, and all this sort of stuff, they have to deliver content um, that everybody has to have. So the beauty of the summit with what Phil's put together is we come in with a little bit of a blueprint, but then we tailor it to what the people want. So if people have really put some thought into what they want to get out of the weekend, and if they share that with us, we'll do our very best to try and help them get there, and just come with a growth mindset. That yep, I want to take something. It might not be, there might be some content there that you might think, oh no, that's I already know that. But if you open up your mind, how can you make that better? There's something there you might be able to adapt it, make it better for your environment. Yeah. So I guess the main thing is just come in with an open mind and be prepared to ask
Mm.
or be really clear on what you want out of that weekend, and then we'll try and deliver it for you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
great. I think that's really great. So yeah, start thinking about it now if you're planning on coming. And if you have any other thoughts, make your presence known at the beginning. I think that's a beautiful thing for
yeah,
everyone
yeah.
to, take away from at least this conversation. And hopefully there's a ton of more takeaways after October 12th. So Darryl, thank you so much again for coming, and thank you so much for meeting with me today. Incredibly excited for the Rugby Development Summit. If you are interested in going to the Rugby Development Summit, head on over to rugbysummit.com. Click on any of the links in there, and obviously click the ticket link if you want to purchase today. The early bird tickets close after October 1st. So head on over there right now and check it out. Darryl, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir. We'll see you.